I never expected that night to change me. I walked into the Tonight Show studio like I always did, laughing with the staff, joking with Jimmy, pretending everything in my life was under control. People see the stage lights, the fancy clothes, the awards, the stadiums full of fans screaming my name, but no one really knows what happens inside this heart of mine. I've kept my feelings locked away for years, pretending I was fine. Pretending love didn't scare me. Pretending the idea of marriage didn't make my hands shake. But something inside me was different that day. Maybe it was the silence in the dressing room. Maybe it was the way I stared at myself in the mirror and realized I wasn't a kid anymore. Maybe it was because I was tired of hiding her, tired of loving someone the world didn't know, someone I kept in the shadows to protect. I don't know. I just knew that tonight I needed to stop lying, even if the truth destroyed me. When Jimmy started asking questions about the future, I could feel my heartbeat become louder than the applause. I smiled on the outside, but my hands were cold. And then he said it. Taehyung, do you ever think about marriage? About the woman you'll end up with? The audience laughed lightly, waiting for a funny answer. They didn't know that question cut deeper than anyone could imagine. I could have played it cool. I could have teased, said something funny, moved on. But my throat didn't let me. My emotions had been buried for too long. I felt myself surrender. And before I could stop myself, I answered with a truth I had never spoken publicly. Yes, I already know who my future wife is. You should have seen Jimmy's face. He froze. The audience gasped. And I knew at that moment the world had changed forever. My heart was racing and my voice trembled, but I continued. I wasn't talking to Jimmy anymore. I wasn't talking to the cameras. I was talking to her, the woman I love more than myself. She's not a celebrity, I said. She's not used to cameras. She's not someone people expect. But she's the person who makes me feel like I can be myself. Like I'm not V. I'm just Taehyung. And once I started, everything inside me poured out like I had been waiting my whole life to speak. I told them how we met, not with glamour, not in some romantic movie scene, but in the most ordinary moment, one that somehow changed everything. She looked at me not as an idol, not as someone above the world, but as a human being. I didn't scare her. I didn't impress her. She didn't chase fame. She didn't ask for anything. She just saw me, my flaws, my fears, my scars, and loved me anyway. Standing there, under the bright studio lights, I confess that we've been together in silence for years. Not secretly because I was ashamed, but secretly because I wanted to protect her. Every rumor, every hate comment, every paparazzi photo, every fan war, I didn't want her to experience that. I thought hiding her was the safest thing I could do. But hiding her felt like hiding my happiness, and it was destroying me. And then I said the sentence that made Jimmy finally break. If protecting her means the world turns against me, then I'll accept it. I don't want to spend my life loving someone in secret. I want the world to know she's the person I want to marry. The studio was silent. Jimmy covered his mouth and looked down, shaking his head like he was trying to stop himself from crying. I could feel the tension heavy in the air. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent, and I was trying to breathe. I continued speaking slowly, almost whispering. I told them that being Taehyung the idol, the performer, the superstar is only one part of who I am. But being loved by her is the only part that makes me feel real. I told them she doesn't care about money or fame or status. She cares whether I've eaten, whether I've slept, whether I'm happy, even on days when I pretend I'm okay. She holds my hand when I feel lost. She listens when I don't have strength to talk. When the world admires me, she reminds me to stay humble. When the world criticizes me, she reminds me that I'm enough. And then I confess the thing I had never said to anyone, not even to her. I chose her as my future wife a long time ago. Jimmy looked at me like he had never seen me before, not as an entertainer, but as a man who was finally telling the truth about what he wants. And it was the first time in my life I saw tears forming in his eyes. I felt my own eyes start to burn. I wasn't afraid of being judged anymore. I wasn't afraid of the headlines. I wasn't afraid of losing fans. For the first time, I was afraid of only one thing: losing her. I realized that love is not meant to be hidden. It's meant to be lived. It's meant to be fought for. And I said it clearly. One day I'm going to marry her. Even if the world doesn't approve, even if it isn't easy, I'm going to choose her every time. When the camera stopped rolling later, Jimmy hugged me. He whispered, "Real love like that, you have to protect it." And I broke. I cried in his arms, not because I was sad, but because for the first time someone understood me. I didn't know what the world would say after that night. I don't know if I'll be hated or loved for telling the truth. But I know one thing. If the price of loving her is chaos, then let the chaos come. Because she is worth everything. The night after the interview aired was the longest night of my life. I didn't sleep. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word I'd said, wondering if I had just ruined everything or finally set myself free. My phone was buzzing nonstop, calls from the company, messages from friends, notifications exploding. I didn't answer any of them. I couldn't. For the first time, I wasn't worried about the industry, reputation, or headlines. I was worried about her. I kept thinking, did I make her unsafe? Did I make her cry? Did I put her in danger? Loving someone outside of the spotlight is not simple when your whole life is public. I knew that the internet was already searching, investigating, digging through my past, my friends, my surroundings, trying to find her. That was the part that scared me. Not for myself, I can handle hate, I've grown up in it, but she hasn't. She never asked for fame, she never asked for attention, she just asked to be loved quietly. I watched the rerun of the interview alone in the dark. I studied my own face, the shaking voice, the nervous laughter, the pain in my eyes that I always hide. And then I watched the moment when I said, I already know who my future wife is. You could see everything change in me. Like I finally stopped acting. Like I wasn't V anymore. I was just a man speaking from the deepest part of himself. And that terrified me as much as it liberated me. I thought about calling her, but my hands were frozen. What if she was angry? What if I hurt her by exposing our love to millions of people? What if she didn't want the world to know? What if I had been selfish? All night, I rehearsed conversations in my mind. Apologies. Explanation. Promise. Every scenario ended with the same fear: losing her. The next afternoon, I finally gathered the courage to see her. no bodyguards, no staff, no cars. I walked through the city disguised, wearing a hoodie and mask, hoping no one would notice me. Every step felt heavier. By the time I arrived in front of her apartment, my heartbeat was louder than the traffic. I didn't knock immediately. I stood there, hand raised, but frozen again. I didn't know whether I was about to be welcomed or rejected. When the door opened, she didn't say anything. She just looked at me. I didn't know what she was thinking, but her eyes always tell the truth before her lips do. I didn't wait for her to speak. I broke first. I'm sorry, I said. I just couldn't hide you anymore. I couldn't hide us. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't accuse me. She simply whispered, "Come inside," and stepped back for me to enter. That's who she is. Calm even when the world is on fire. We sat on the couch in silence for what felt like hours. I couldn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the floor, ashamed of the fear I had caused her. Finally, she spoke softly, but with the strength I've always admired. "Why did you do it?" I looked up and met her eyes. The answer came from somewhere raw inside me without hesitation. "Because I want to love you without fear. Because I'm tired of pretending you don't exist. Because I don't want to live a life where happiness has to be hidden in the dark." She stared at me, and in that moment, I was completely exposed. I wasn't Taehyung the idol, I was just a man begging to be loved without limits. Her eyes softened, and she reached for my hands. Her touch always calms every storm inside me. "I was scared," she admitted. "Not because of what you said, but because I thought you might regret loving me. I thought one day you'd realize it would be easier for you to be with someone famous, someone who understands the spotlight." The pain in her voice broke me. I squeezed her hands tighter. "I don't want easy," I said. "I want real, and real is you." She leaned into my shoulder, and I felt her body tremble. That was the moment I realized she wasn't crying because she was hurt. She was crying because she loved me, just as deeply, just as painfully. We sat there for a long time, not talking, just holding each other, letting our hearts speak in silence. I kissed her hair and whispered, "I meant it. I want to marry you someday." And for the first time, she didn't pull away. She didn't say, "Let's not talk about the future yet." Instead, she whispered something I'll never forget. "When the time is right, I'll say yes." Those words were worth everything. Worth the fear, worth the chaos, worth the risk of the whole world turning against me. But the world wasn't done with us. The next morning, the articles were everywhere. News, headlines, celebrity blogs, reaction channels, podcasts, conspiracy forums. Some were supportive, some were cruel. Some tried to guess who she was, some pretended they had proof. People online attacked, defended, overanalyzed the internet, went to war. The company called for an urgent private meeting. They said the situation was unexpected, dangerous, unmanageable. They told me I had to stay silent and not fuel the situation any further. They asked me if I understood the consequences of loving someone outside the spotlight. I told them I understood the consequences long before I said a word on television. They asked me if I was willing to let her go for the sake of my career and for the sake of the group. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, looked them in the eyes, and said with a calm voice that even surprised me, I would never sacrifice real love for fame. If protecting the group means I have to end my relationship, then I won't do it. I will protect both. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't rebellion, it was just the truth of who I am. On the way home, I replayed the meeting over and over, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my career. But when I opened the door to her place and saw her sitting there waiting for me, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. She walked toward me slowly, looked into my eyes, and said, no matter what the world does, I'm not going anywhere. And at that moment, I realized something even deeper. The world might be loud, fame might be unpredictable, but love, real love, is quiet, strong, and unbreakable. And I'm ready to fight for it. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was still breathing, but the world was spinning faster than I could keep up. Every time I opened my phone, the chaos was louder. Headlines everywhere, trends, debates, fan wars, theories, people trying to protect me, people trying to destroy me, people trying to uncover her identity. That was the part that hit me hardest, the thought that someone might drag her name into the spotlight just to satisfy their curiosity. I knew the storm was coming the moment I spoke on Jimmy's show, but seeing it unfold was different. It was like watching lightning strike the ground and realizing you're standing right in the middle of it. I wasn't scared for myself. I've learned how to handle hate, rumors, and public scrutiny, but she hasn't. And every time someone online claimed they had proof of who she was, my chest tightened until it hurt. I told her not to open social media for a while. I told her to stay with her family. I told her I would handle everything. But she looked at me with that soft strength of hers, the same look that always reminds me that she's braver than I am in ways no one knows. She shook her head and said, I'm not running just because people are loud. Her calmness was the only peace I had left in that moment. Still, I couldn't deny what was happening. The pressure from the industry was increasing. The company set up more meetings, lawyers, PR teams, security, all trying to control the situation. Everyone was talking about me, about the group, about the fans, about the possible damage. But no one was asking how I felt. No one cared that I was still a human being who just wanted to love someone without hurting her. It wasn't long before the company gave me their decision. They said the best plan was to release a public statement denying everything. They wanted to say my words were misunderstood, that the show was scripted, that I was joking. They even drafted a statement for me to post on my social media fake called empty. I stared at the draft for a long time. They wanted me to erase my truth for the sake of silence. They wanted me to pretend that the most honest moment of my life never happened. I pushed the phone away and told them, I'm not lying to the world about the person I love. They insisted that it was necessary, not just for my reputation, but for the group's safety, for the global brand, the collaborations, the investors, the tour plans. They said the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I looked at them and thought, when did love become a crime? When did honesty become a threat? That night, I went home feeling like I had disappointed everyone, the company, the fans, the group. I sat on the floor in my living room, back against the wall, head in my hands. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was exhausted in a way even sleep can't fix. Loving someone shouldn't feel like choosing between happiness and survival. She came over quietly, sat next to me without asking what happened. She just put her head on my shoulder and held my hand. She didn't need to know the details. She already knew the weight I was carrying. She whispered, "You don't have to fight alone." And those 5 words made my chest break open. For so long, I had been protecting her, but I didn't realize she was protecting me too. A few days later, promotions for the new project were scheduled. It didn't matter what I was going through, cameras don't wait for emotions. I had to go back to interviews, photo shoots, music shows, smiling, laughing, acting like my world wasn't on fire. When I walked onto the first stage after the controversy, the crowd screamed my name louder than ever. That should have made me feel powerful. It didn't. It made me feel small. They were cheering for V, but I was standing there as Taehyung, a man who was barely holding himself together. During rehearsal, I caught a glimpse of myself on the monitor. My smile wasn't real. My eyes looked tired. For the first time in my career, I wondered if performing was protecting me or destroying me. Later that evening, the members sat with me privately. They didn't ask questions, either they didn't have to. They know me better than anyone. One of them looked me in the eyes and said, "Are you happy?" The question was so simple and so heavy that I couldn't answer right away. I didn't know the answer anymore. I told them the truth that I loved her more than anything, but I was afraid she would get hurt because of me. I expected frustration or disappointment. Instead, one of them said something I'll never forget. "If she makes you feel like home, then she's worth fighting for." They didn't judge me. They didn't tell me to end it. They didn't tell me to let her go for the group. They told me that love was not the enemy. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Still, another storm hit the tabloids, started chasing anyone who had ever been photographed near me. Innocent people were stalked. Private lives were invaded. Reporters waited outside apartments. Fans argued under every post. The world was louder than ever, and I felt helpless standing in the middle of it. I knew then that I had to make a choice, not about fame, not about music, not about my career. I had to choose what kind of man I wanted to be. Was I going to let fear lead my life? Or was I going to protect the love that gave me strength? So, one night, I sat down and wrote a message for her. I told her that this love might require sacrifices, both of us standing together even when the world tries to break us apart. I told her I wasn't asking her to be ready now. I wasn't asking her to accept the spotlight. I was asking her one thing only, to not give up on us. When she replied, her message was short, just one sentence. "I'm not afraid to love you." Those words became the anchor that grounded me. People say idols belong to the world, but I learned something deeper. My heart doesn't belong to millions of people. It belongs to one. Fame didn't create me. Love did. And if the world is determined to test us, then let it come. Because love is not something I'm willing to lose quietly. I learned very quickly that when you tell the world the truth, the world doesn't stay silent. Every single hour felt like a test, not of my career, but of my heart. I used to think I had already been through the hardest moments life could give me: pressure, fame, hate, exhaustion, expectations. But nothing compares to the fear of losing the person you love because of who you are. The hardest part wasn't the headlines or the statements or the threats, it was the waiting. Waiting to see what fans would decide, waiting to see what the company would do, waiting to see if she could handle the pressure, waiting to see if I was strong enough for both of us. I remember one day in the middle of all the chaos, my manager came to my house because he was worried about me. He found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by printed articles that I didn't want to read but couldn't stop reading. He looked at me and said, "You're not yourself these days." And he was right. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like a man trapped between love and responsibility. I told him something I had never told anyone, that I was tired of being treated like I wasn't allowed to be human. I was tired of being told that love was a distraction, a risk, a weakness. He listened quietly, and then he said something that surprised me. Being loved doesn't make you weak, Taehyung. It's the thing that keeps you alive. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until the moment he said it. Still, nothing changed overnight. The pressure continued building. The company wanted control. The media wanted answers. The fans wanted certainty. And I was stuck trying to protect her without breaking myself. That's when she did something that reminded me again why I chose her. One evening, I came home exhausted from another emergency meeting. My head felt heavy and my heart felt numb. And there she was in the kitchen cooking dinner. Not because she wanted to impress me, not because she had to, but because she knew I needed warmth. The smell of food, the soft music in the background, her voice saying, "You're home," like it was the most normal thing in the world, it healed me more than any award or applause ever could. We ate together in silence. I couldn't stop staring at her. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. She laughed at my jokes. She listened when I vented. She didn't talk to V. She talked to Taehyung. And there was something so powerful about being loved without performance. After dinner, she stood behind me and wrapped her arms around me. I could feel her heartbeat against my back, calm and steady, like she was telling me without words that she wasn't leaving me no matter how loud the world got. I turned around, held her face in my hands, and confessed the fear I had tried so hard to hide, that I didn't want to lose her, that I didn't want my world to swallow her whole. She looked into my eyes and said something I will never forget. "If loving you requires courage, then I'll be brave." That was the moment I realized she wasn't fragile. She wasn't running from the storm. She was choosing to stand beside me in it. Not because she liked attention or drama, but because she loved me enough to stay. Still, love didn't stop reality from moving forward. The company released a statement saying my comments were misinterpreted, but I refused to post it. They wanted me to play along so everything could go back to normal, but normal isn't always right. And I refused to erase the truth. Suddenly, invitations to interviews shifted. Some shows wanted the gossip, some wanted the exclusive story, some wanted to corner me on live television and force another headline out of me. It became obvious which people cared about me as a human and which people just wanted ratings. I declined most of them. I wasn't going to let the world turn my love into a circus. But then Jimmy called. Not through a manager, not through a company representative, he called me directly. His voice was soft and honest. If you ever need a place to speak again, he said, my show is a safe place for you. That meant more than he knows. Still, I didn't go back on television right away. I wasn't ready to share more. Sometimes love needs silence. Sometimes healing happens off camera. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, the noise on the internet shifted, not because people forgot, but because the world always moves to the next story. But in the quiet, a new challenge began. Paparazzi started watching my schedule, following my car, monitoring every entrance and exit. They weren't trying to hurt me, they were trying to find her. I started living more carefully, not because I wanted to hide her again, but because I wanted to protect her life from being interrupted. When she was with me, every walk outside was strategic. Every date required planning. Every moment of peace was fragile. And still she stayed. I remember one night when we sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea under the cold sky. She rested her head on my chest, our fingers intertwined. We didn't talk much, and we didn't need to. She suddenly whispered, do you regret telling the truth? Her voice shook even though she tried to hide it. I took a deep breath and answered with absolute certainty. If telling the truth means I get to love you without lying, then I'll never regret it. She closed her eyes and I felt her tears on my shirt. Not sad tears, grateful ones. That moment reminded me why I fought so hard in the first place. Because love, real love, isn't meant to survive in secret forever. But destiny wasn't done testing us. Just when the world started to calm down, something happened that shook us more than any headline ever could. Something neither of us were prepared for. And that moment changed everything. I didn't think I would talk about this again. But since that night on Jimmy's show, everything in my heart feels too heavy to keep hidden anymore. And maybe someone out there needs to hear this version of my life too. After that emotional taping ended, the staff cleared the stage and the audience left. Jimmy stayed. He put one hand on my shoulder and said quietly, Taehyung, you don't have to be strong all the time. For a moment, I almost broke down again. Not as an idol, not as a member of BTS, but as a man who has loved someone silently for years and who is terrified of losing her. To be honest, I never planned to talk about my future wife publicly. It was supposed to stay between me and her. A secret memory. A quiet promise. But sometimes life doesn't go the way you prepare for it. And that night on the show, my heart completely took over my mouth. People think I'm calm, poetic, mysterious. But the truth is, I'm just someone who loves deeply and feels everything too strongly. And when I fall in love, it isn't casual. It's forever. There's something I've never admitted until now. I met her before the world expected me to fall in love. Long before anyone imagined I was thinking about marriage. I wasn't looking for anything that day. I didn't even know her name. But the moment I saw her, everything inside me changed. Not in a loud way, not like fireworks, but quietly like a light that suddenly switches on inside your heart and you immediately know this is the person you're meant to choose. I remember every detail, her voice, her warmth, the kindness in her eyes when she didn't even know who I was. She talked to me like I was just a man sitting in front of her, not a celebrity, not someone she had to impress. She didn't try to flirt or take photos. She didn't even ask for anything. She just talked and listened like human to human. I didn't realize how much I needed that. After that meeting, my priorities shifted. Success felt different. Fame felt different. The dreams I used to chase suddenly had a new meaning. I wanted to build a world where she could be safe, happy, and never doubt my love. People think celebrities choose luxury first. But for me, the real dream was a home, not a house, not a mansion, but a warm, peaceful place where she and I could exist without the noise of the world. That's where the fear came in, because loving someone as Taehyung from BTS is the easy part. Loving someone as Kim Taehyung, the imperfect real man behind the stage, is the fragile part. And I always wondered, if the world comes after us, if the pressure gets too loud, will I lose her? There were days when I told myself I should let her go so she could live a safe life without being attached to me. I thought I was protecting her, but in reality, I was breaking my own heart quietly every day. I tried to distract myself with schedules, tours, performances, music, but nothing worked. Even in the middle of thousands of screaming fans, she was the only face I saw in my mind. I used to pray she would find happiness even if it wasn't with me. But if I'm honest, the thought destroyed me. I kept everything to myself for so long. Even the members didn't know the full story. But around late 2022, something changed. I realized that life doesn't wait. Love doesn't wait. And fear is a terrible reason to lose someone you could have spent forever with. So I told myself a promise. No matter what happens, I won't run away from the woman I love ever again. That promise was still in my heart on the night I went on Jimmy Fallon's show, but I didn't plan to reveal any of it. I thought I would laugh, promote my projects, tease Jimmy like always, and then go home. But the moment Jimmy asked me, "What do you imagine your future wife will be like?" something inside me collapsed. Not emotionally loud, but quietly, deeply, painfully. Instead of thinking with my idle mind, I answered with my heart. And everything I said came straight from the place where I've hidden her for so long. After that interview, when I went back to the hotel, I couldn't sleep the entire night. I replayed the moment over and over again and wondered what she would think when she saw it. Would she cry? Would she smile? Or would she be afraid? I wish I could protect her from every rumor, from every comment, from every pressure. But I also realized something very important that night. Love is not meant to be hidden forever. It deserves to be lived. If the world asks me someday, "Are you really going to marry her?" my answer will be simple: yes. I don't know when, I don't know how, but the one thing I'm completely sure of is I know who I want to stand next to me for the rest of my life. And that's why I said those words on Jimmy Fallon's show. Not because I wanted attention, not because of fan service, not because of PR, but because sometimes the truth deserves to be heard, even if it makes the whole world cry, even if it makes me cry too, even if it changes everything, because the woman I love is worth it. At the end of everything, when the noise fades and the world stops watching, I just want to live honestly, not as the perfect idol people expect, but as a man who loves deeply and protects what matters. My future wife is not a rumor, not a fantasy, not a curiosity. She is a real person with a real heart, and she deserves a love that never hides. I can't promise a perfect life, but I can promise loyalty, safety, and a forever place beside me. If someday the world sees us together, I hope they don't see a scandal. I hope they see two people who chose love over fear. Because when the lights turn off and the stage goes quiet, I don't want to stand alone. I want to stand with her, the woman who was worth everything, and that is the truth I will never run from again.